Date number 6. Future family issues. Planning your family before the wedding ensures future unity. Before your date, spend 1 hour filling out the questionnaires 1 through 4. Plan on a 5-hour long date. And afterwards, at home, write in your journal, which is at the end of the download in the link. Journal your reactions to your date. Are you in tune with each other? Are there major differences that are still unresolved? Put aside your feelings of love. Is this a match made in heaven or made in desire only? Reflect and ponder on your conclusions. Instructions. On the date, discuss your answers to the questionnaires. How does each of you feel? Try to make the date relevant to the subject discussed. Use your imagination. Here's one suggestion. Volunteer to babysit with your friends for free. They will be thrilled to have the free babysitter for a date night out. Watch how your partner interacts with the children. After the children are in bed, have your discussion. Questionnaire number 1. Children and expectations. How many children do you want? I'd like as many as possible. How soon after your marriage do you want to have children? As soon as possible. Do you believe in birth control? What kind? Should it be the woman's or man's responsibility? Are you worried about possible negative health consequences from any of your specific birth control methods? How will you make these decisions with your future spouse? No birth control unless it's merely spacing birth outs for a year. Do you believe in praying about these kinds of family decisions, including how many children to have? If your partner does not want to have children and you do, how are you going to resolve this? Ask what her concerns are, and I would barter. Do you think there's an ideal spacing between children in years? 1 to 2 years, depending on wife's strength. Should you have the final say on whether or not to have more children? Who should have the final say? God should get the final say on having more children. Are your philosophies the same in regards to how many children to have, or are there major differences that need to be resolved? What are they? What if you have a Down syndrome child or a special needs child? How will you cope? What is your philosophy if such a thing should happen? What are your thoughts about abortion if you know a child will be born deformed? I would accept it as is. Should the needs of your children be priority over the needs of your spouse? If so, why? Or why not? What is your philosophy on the subject? I believe my spouse's needs override my children's needs. In what ways do you believe the husband should be involved in rearing the children? Do you think that the mother should take the major role in rearing the children? Why or why not? Do you believe in having a set of rules for your children to follow at various stages of their lives? If so, what rules? Age 8, baptized, and some age they should start doing chores. What are your thoughts on disciplining children? Do you believe in corporal punishment? Yes, I believe in physical punishment. Do you agree with the way that your parents disciplined you? What would you change? Do you expect your spouse to support you in your discipline decisions even if he or she disagrees? How will you resolve differences? How can you achieve unity in front of your children? Yes, I hope she agrees with me and supports me in my discipline decisions. What is your definition of a good parent? A good parents get their kids to strive for perfection. Are you a hardline rules person or a spirit of law person when it comes to rearing children? A bit of both, hardline rules and spirit of the law. Should children have chores? At what age should they start? Maybe age 8? Should children be paid for chores around the house? Yes, about 50 cents per chore. What do you think about holding special weekly family get-togethers, such as playing sports together, having a game night or movie night with the family only, etc.? I would say Monday night is game night, Wednesday is sports night, and Friday is movie night. What are your expectations for your spouse in being a good parent? Support punishments and not spoil the children. How do you feel about bedtimes for children? I think 9 p.m. would be good for for kids 6 years old and under, 9:30 p.m. for kids 12 and under, 10:30 p.m. for kids 17 and under, and then midnight for adults 18 and above. How will you treat your children when they are sick? What values are you going to teach your children? Honesty, faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, brotherly kindness, godliness, charity, Humility, diligence. Will you force your children to go to church? Which religion? What is your philosophy? Questionnaire number 2. Chores around the house. Who does them? List your expectations for whom you think should perform each chore around the house, such as taking out the garbage, doing the dishes, cooking the meals, painting the house, working in the garden, etc. When you are together, discuss how the various chores will be accomplished, whether together or by one person. Make assignments now as though you were starting your home together. There are household chores, outdoor chores, and general chores. Questionnaire number 3. Animals and pets. What are your expectations for having animals and household pets? Do you think animals should be allowed in the home or live outside? I think they should be either in the home or outside. Do you think they should be allowed to sleep in the same bed as you? If your spouse doesn't like pets and you're an animal lover, can you compromise? Yes, I can compromise. If a compromise does not look possible, how will you handle this? How do you feel about the care of animals? Are you the type who wants the very best for your pets, like they were equal members of the family? Do you believe in regular veterinary visits, or do you feel that they don't need that level of care? How do the two of you feel about the expense related to having pets? What if you have 2 dogs and have had them for 5 years, but suddenly you are out of work and cannot afford to care for the dogs? Would you give the dogs away? Put them to sleep? How would you handle this? I would give them away. Question number 4, last one. Food issues. What kind of food do you eat daily? Are you a vegetarian? Are you the same as your partner and your eating habits are different? I'm an omnivore. The New Testament testifies against vegetarianism. Just in case I can persuade you to eat like me. Does your partner criticize or joke about the kind of food you eat? Do you like bland food or spicy food? I have a high tolerance for spicy food. Do you have any food allergies? List any. Sometimes the taste of coconut makes me gag. It's too sweet. I had too much when I was a kid. What are your expectations for family meals? Do you like many different kinds of foods or a set group? Who should decide what you are going to eat for each meal? Do you expect a sit-down family meal each night with everyone eating the same thing? Or do you prefer each family member to prepare his or her own meal? What if your family doesn't like the food you or your spouse prepared? I would say that they have 2 options. Who will be the primary cook in the home? I would hope for a chef. Do you have weight issues that you have not resolved? Does your partner hound you about your weight? Do you wish your partner were thinner? I accept my partner no matter how thin they are. Are you dieting now? Do you commonly diet? How will a diet affect meals together? I try to stay away from sodas. Do you use food to cope with stress? No, I don't. Have you ever suffered from an eating disorder? Bulimia? Anorexia? I have never had an eating disorder. Are you currently suffering from an eating disorder? What can you do to resolve this issue? When you're together, discuss any serious food differences and how you will deal with them. List what you consider to be conflicts. Concepts to consider. Does your partner want children and you absolutely do not? Are you not united when it comes to this issue? Perhaps you seek a mate who has the same expectations? Think carefully. Unless conflicts about having children are resolved, you will most certainly experience heartache after the marriage. Juliet married Larry in spite of knowledge that he did not want children, and its warnings from her best friend. She was convinced that she could change his mind. Discussions about children only drove her further apart from Larry, so she stopped bringing up the subject. After 10 years of marriage, nothing changed. Juliet loves Larry but feels a profound emptiness because of his unwillingness to have children. Juliet regrets not listening to the voice of wisdom prior to the wedding. Do not fall into this trap. I can change him or her after the wedding. What are your philosophies on rearing children? Are they radically different from those of your partner? Are you able to compromise? Would your partner consider taking a class on parenting skills and techniques? Get a commitment now. Perhaps you should try taking a short parenting course to see if you can work together on such an important subject. Carol came from parents who were disciplinarians. Isaac came from an ex-hippie parents who had no rules. They could foresee parenting disputes, so they decided to take a community college night school class on parenting. It was a success for them. Together, they read, discussed, and formulated a parenting style that they both embraced. After marriage, having two children, they were proud to report that they had peace, harmony, and love in their home, thanks to the work they did prior to their marriage. Have you successfully divided up the chores? Did your fiancé or fiancée refuse to cooperate with you? Did he or she exclaim, "This is stupid. We'll figure that all out later"? These are excuses. Is it called procrastination? Could this be a warning sign? If he or she refuses to cooperate now, after the wedding it could get worse. We are always on our best behavior before the wedding. Why? Because we're still trying to impress each other. I'll never forget the couple that called me up at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. They were in a crisis. I covered the phone receiver with one hand and asked my husband if he would mind if I invited Sharon and Will over for a counseling session. My husband nodded his approval. Sharon was so upset with Will that she wanted a divorce. Sharon had asked Will to fix her leaky kitchen faucet 2 years ago. He never responded to her request. As I questioned further, I uncovered other chores that Will has now started, let alone finished. He hadn't mowed the lawn in the spring and summer, or shoveled the snow in the winter. When Sharon would ask him to do these tasks, he would say, "Relax, I'll get to it." Sometimes his reply was, "I'll do it on Saturday," but Saturday would come and Will still hadn't done what he had promised. Sharon was tired of doing her own chores and her husband's as well. As far as she was concerned, their marriage has digressed into a self-sacrificing disaster. As we talked, I noticed that he was sniffling. I asked if he needed a tissue. He said he was okay. After further questioning and some rather evasive answers, he finally admitted that he had allergies. It turned out that Will was allergic to grass and most other plant life. These allergies bothered him tremendously in the spring and summer. No wonder he didn't mow the lawn. Ash, why on earth didn't you tell your wife? After more evasive answers, he finally broke down and answered, "I was embarrassed. I was afraid she wouldn't marry me. As a boy growing up, kids made fun of me. They called me names, wuss, pansy, girly, and others. Besides, my parents always told me that my allergies were psychological. I thought they might go away after we got married, but it seemed the more I tried to hide by telling Sharon that it must be a cold, the more she got mad at me and ended up doing the chores herself." "Okay, Will," Sharon expressed with a note of tenderness in her voice. "Why didn't you tell me? I want you to get to a doctor right away. They have medications for allergies." I interrupted. "Excuse me if I sound rude, but what allergies have to do with shoveling the walk in the winter and fixing the faucet?" Will looked sheepishly at me. "Not caring to take care of the snow is just laziness, I guess. But when you get out of the habit, it's easy to let things like that just pass. About the leaky faucets, I simply don't know how to fix them and don't want to admit it." By this time, Sharon was getting upset. She said, "Was I so terrible to you that you wouldn't tell me these things?" Will answered, "Well, I guess it goes back to the fact that I had to compete with other men to win Sharon's hand. I didn't ever want anything to make her think I was anything less than them. I'm sorry." Sharon hugged Will. Although they sounded simple, these were major revelations in their marriage. After another hour working through the problems and planning solutions, they left my house that night happier than they had been since their honeymoon 2.5 years prior. Will got medical help for his allergies and now mows the lawn with quite satisfaction. They reworked their household budget to accommodate a plumber when they needed to hire a neighborhood boy to shovel the snow in the winter. They never guessed talking about chores and medical issues was so important before marriage. Chores, this is an important subject unless you are so rich that you have a professional maid, housekeeper, butler, and cook. How about animals? Do you love animals and your partner hates animals? Beware, this has become an issue larger than life. Make sure that your compromises are acceptable to both of you prior to the wedding. I'm sure you all have heard the stories of the spouse who issued the ultimatum: "It's either the cat or me. Which do you choose?" Or, "If you don't get rid of that dog, I'm leaving you." This is real and you need to know now about how your partner feels about animals. Are your eating habits compatible? If not, make sure that you resolve them before the marriage. You don't want to be sneaking out at night to eat a steak because your spouse is a vegetarian and disapproves. If you're worried that your partner has eating disorders, make sure that he or she sees a doctor and gets them resolved before the wedding. Delay the wedding date until he or she is ready. It is worth the wait. Never rush into marriage. A girlfriend wished that she had married a different man when it came to eating. Her husband was always on a new fad diet. She found herself cooking 2 meals each dinner. Then when the kids came along and began grade school, they noticed that their father ate differently than the rest of them. Soon my girlfriend was fixing 4 different meals for our 4 fussy eaters. After 15 years of marriage, she had had it. She told her family that she was no longer going to fix 4 different meals at dinner. She went on strike. Her husband started to cook for the family. After 2 weeks, he laid down the law that everybody had to eat whatever his wife fixed, one meal only. He finally understood her plight. All ended happily ever after. However, the situation could have been thought out, discussed, and settled prior to the wedding. My friend could have avoided 15 years of food hell. Remember, resolve your differences before the wedding. Don't forget to journal. What did you learn new on this day? If you have any unresolved difference or conflicts, what plans do you have for the resolution?